of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
I will tell them to F off if they do that again.
Tonight on Politics Now, how a bickering school board is costing you tax dollars.
It was my obligation on behalf of the voters.
Clark County Commissioner Justin Jones up for re-election and accused of corruption. He talks about his votes on a controversial Red Rock housing development and his vision for the future. Plus, no endorsement. Clark County's largest teachers union chooses to stay out of the hotly contested governor's race.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Thank you very much for joining us here on Politics Now. I'm John Langler. We start with Clark County School District. They're elected leaders responsible for the direction of CCSD. But watching a meeting can seem like more of a reality show instead of government. Constant arguments are visible in person and on social media. As our 8 News Now investigator David Charnes found out, it's costing you money.
Trustee Ford, you're not the president. You're not running the meeting. So please.
You are a hypocrite. I'm going to go tweet about it. Hypocrite.
She's going to tweet about it? Okay, so.
They're public moments highlighting a school board in chaos.
Thank you, Trustee Ford, for the offer. How about you put that on your campaign website?
Okay, trustees, we are not doing this. Absolutely not. We will shut down the lines if you two cannot communicate professionally.
Infighting among the Clark County School Board of Trustees seen in full view and posted online.
What can I do to help you improve your social media habits, because it's tanking this entire organization and the group dynamics.
But the 7 trustees have tried to get along, at least through trainings costing Clark County taxpayers thousands. The 8 News Now investigators filing public records requests with CCSD to find out how much. Invoices revealing at least 4 sessions cost a combined $15,000. The biggest charge, $8,500, to learn, quote, skills and strategies, work better as a board, and help individual trustees meet their individual needs. This was Trustee Katie Williams just last week.
This board is absolutely insane. It's completely off the rails. And do you think that any superintendent worth his weight in gold, or her weight in gold, right, is going to want to come to this district after we have constantly put ourselves on display?
I think my interaction is just fine. In fact, that's what I was voted for.
Trustee Danielle Ford is often the most outspoken. This tweet from May directed to Trustee Williams saying, "Shut the expletive up." This was a meeting in June.
I will tell them to F off if they do that again.
I will absolutely go on social media where I know that anybody could see it if they wanted to and speak the truth about what happened or set the record straight.
Ford says the district is spending even more money on training. Sessions, she says, are not beneficial. She tells us she'd rather sit and learn about policy and law.
We don't get any training on that. All of our training is just be quiet. Why are you being rude? You should be nice to the other members of the board.
There's a roadmap now in front of you that you can choose to move forward on.
In May, the board talked about the policies it paid to develop. Notes and recommendations include not to post individually on social media and instead, quote, speaking with one voice to send a clear message on the priorities and progress of district goals.
There are many issues that we have interpersonally with each other. We fail to constantly address them, or we address them ineffectively.
With $15,000 spent on the sessions we found invoices for, this was Board President Irene Cepeda's response just this past summer.
It is insane that I spend so much time disciplining trustees when that should not be the case.
And that was David Charnes reporting. CCSD elections are nonpartisan. 3 trustees are up for re-election this November, including Board President Irene Cepeda and the woman you heard from, Trustee Danielle Ford. Nevada's largest teachers union is staying out of the governor's race. This week, the Clark County Education Association announced it's not going to endorse a candidate for the November election. Now, back in 2018, the organization did endorse and campaigned for current Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak. However, now the CCEA says Governor Sisolak hasn't outlined a plan to address issues like rising class sizes and campus violence. The union is also not endorsing Republican challenger Joe Lombardo. In a statement, Sisolak's campaign says his government has given teachers their first raise in more than a decade. The campaign also touted a deal the Sisolak administration brokered with mining companies to send $500 million new tax dollars towards education. A large gun control political action committee is spending millions of dollars in that tight Nevada governor's race. Every Town for Gun Safety plans to put $3.6 million on ads attacking Joe Lombardo. The ads you're seeing right here feature people the group says are Nevada voters talking about violence in their communities during Lombardo's time as sheriff. Lombardo's campaign blames Governor Sisolak's crime policies as being too soft and too restrictive on police. Governor Sisolak and State Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro touted Nevada's healthcare public option this week. The Democrats estimate this will help another 350,000 Nevadans get insurance. It was passed in the last legislative session and works to establish a state-managed public health insurance option by 2026.
It's going to make the option available for more people that previously wouldn't have had it available to them. We're expecting over 50,000 in the first year.
The Republican the Republican opponent, rather, Joe Lombardo, his campaign released a statement saying, in part, this just puts additional mandates on insurance companies that'll force them to cost shift and raise rates on people all across Nevada. Democratic State Treasurer Zach Conine has filed another election complaint against his opponent in the upcoming election, Republican Michelle Fiore. The complaint was filed with the Secretary of State's office. Conine accuses Fiore of taking donations over the $10,000 limit and using fake donor names. Conine adds he'll give information that he has found to law enforcement. In response, Fiore's campaign says, quote, Conine is using a minor clerical error to smokescreen his deliberate act of divesting from companies because he disagrees with the Constitution and invests in the Communist Party of China-owned companies instead. Now to the race for Clark County Commission. In District F, incumbent Democrat Justin Jones faces Republican challenger Drew Johnson. Now, last week we heard from Johnson. This week we spoke with Commissioner Jones. What does District F, your district, need that hasn't been achieved in the last 4 years?
Well, you know, it's been an interesting 4 years, John. We had a lot of goals for District F and for the county more generally, and then COVID hit us. And so we had to really focus all of our attention on making sure that we protected people's health and well-being and did everything we could in order to reinvigorate the economy. And so that's what we did. We spent a lot of time and effort on COVID, and you've seen the economy come roaring back. We spent a lot of time and effort and frankly money in supporting small business owners.
Your opponent also suggests that broadly in Clark County there's a lot of money being wasted. There isn't enough watching of the money being spent, keeping an eye on where the taxpayers' money is going. Are you confident that the contracts that are signed, this is kind of a broad question I realize, but do you think that the taxpayers are being well served by you and the other commissioners with their money?
I think absolutely. Our CFO is one of the, frankly, most conservative CFOs out there. Pre-pandemic, we were in the strongest financial situation of any local jurisdiction, and we continue to be so. There's a reason why our bond ratings are at the top of every jurisdiction in the state of Nevada. We are fiscally conservative. We make sure that we spend every dollar in the right way, and if any issues come up, we go audit those expenditures, and we've clawed back money when we found that there were issues out there, even from nonprofits.
One of an issue that you have close to your heart is the issue of Red Rock and protection of Red Rock, both as county commissioner and beforehand as well. Talk about some of the efforts that you have taken to try and protect Red Rock, but also increase access to it.
Sure, absolutely. As a lot of the viewers might know, there's been a big battle between a developer and Clark County over the last 20 years. The original proposal from the developer was for more than 5,000 homes, and the county commission in 2019 had denied the request from the developer to waive a condition that related to the road The developer finally, after 20 years, came in with a proposal that was within the density that was permitted up there when he bought it. And so that was the subject of a recent vote on the county commission.
Well, it's also the subject of litigation that you're involved in as well. Your opponent is accusing you of being corrupt. There's allegations of conflict of interest that you voted on this, even though before you were on the commission, as an attorney, you were involved in this case. Allegations of records being deleted, public records being deleted. How do you respond to these accusations?
Well, sure. I think I've responded publicly to these accusations before with regards to the vote and the allegations that I was conflicted out. That's why I affirmatively went to the Nevada Commission on Ethics, laid everything out to them before that vote, and they said that I was required to disclose my prior affiliation with a nonprofit, Save Red Rock, but that I was not only allowed to vote, but that was my obligation on behalf of the voters who elected me.
You can watch more of our interview with Mr. Jones, the commissioner, and our interview with his opponent, Drew Johnson, on 8newsnow.com. Next on Politics Now, more from the county commission races coming up.
At that point, what the county should have done and what the state should have done is they should have filed a federal lawsuit against California for breach of contract.
Republican Billy Mitchell taking on Commission Chair Jim Gibson. We'll talk about his plan to tackle
Toyota, let's go places. Welcome back to Politics Now.
Well, this week, the Las Vegas Asian Chamber of Commerce has made its political endorsements known. It's a mix of Republicans and Democrats. The main ones, well, for governor, they endorsed Republican Joe Lombardo. Lieutenant governor, as you see on your screen, it's Republican Stavros Anthony. The Asian Chamber, though, also picked two Democrats, Zach Conine for treasurer and Cisco Aguilar for Secretary of State. Billy Mitchell hopes to be the first Republican on the Clark County Commission in nearly 2 decades. He's running against incumbent Democrat and Commission Chair Jim Gibson in District G. That covers southeast areas of Clark County, including Henderson and Boulder City. Well, this week I talked with him about what he would change. You've never run for political office before. What motivated you to run? And for the viewers at home, for the voters at home, some of your background.
So I'm a veteran. I was an ex-school teacher. I raced NASCAR. I built the Fountains Bellagio, a lot of different engineering projects. I'm an engineering project manager. I just got to a point where I just couldn't sit back anymore. You know, I defended 2 wars, and this isn't the country I remember growing up. So I felt like I needed to get involved, and at the county level seems to be the appropriate place. So,
what is it at the county level that you would want to address first?
We need to do an audit We need to go through and be more accountable for the money that's being spent and what projects. Working for DOD now, I'm very familiar with government processes, and from what I've seen at the county commission meetings, they're not being followed.
Explain a little bit about that. What do you mean specifically that's not being followed? Give me an example of something that stands out to you that you would like to deal with right away.
So the first thing that came to me was I was at the water commissioning meeting a couple weeks ago, and they just gave them $7.1 million right off the cuff. The way I'm used to dealing with the Department of Defense is you have to put out RFPs, you have to do a bidding process, and you have to justify that financing before you can just say spend $7.1 million on digitizing records or whatever the excuse here we're giving them.
So you think that sort of there's a blank check at the county commission that you want to try and deal with? What do you think needs to be done from a Clark County Commission level to help with our water shortages, our water issues, and what's happening at Lake Mead?
So I think the federal government needs to get involved, and I think that our county commissioners and our county needs to facilitate that. That pact that they have, or agreement, was from 1920s. They got to a 2A level just a few weeks ago when the county commission was up there. The reality is that, based off the information that the Southern Nevada Water Authority presented to the county, that we're not using any more water now than we did 10 years ago. So why is the lake going dry? Well, it's real simple. California is using way over their allotment. When they got to a 2A, which is a tier 1 level, they were all supposed to come together and come back with cutbacks. We did that. A matter of fact, I call them the Gibson mandates now, with the pools and the front yards that they just put in. California didn't even come to the table. So at that point, what the county should have done and what the state should have done is they should have filed a federal lawsuit against California for breach of contract. And at that point, it would have forced them to come to the table before it gets down to a 2B level, which the Southern Nevada Water Authority said is going to be in less than 24 months, and they may have to shut the dam down.
What do you think District G needs that the incumbent is not providing?
So he doesn't even represent District G. I've had the police department, the fire departments all come to me, the people in Boulder City. He's a career politician. When he left Henderson, he left him with a $90 million deficit that left everybody with a bad taste in their mouth. When he first got appointed to county commissioner, he shouldn't have. He wasn't elected. He shouldn't. He lost the mayor race. He didn't even get through the primary with Dina Titus. He should have just said that's the end of politics. But he didn't. He decided to throw his hat in the ring at county commissioner, and I don't think he's really represented Henderson or Boulder City well at all.
We have the full interview on 8newsnow.com. Commissioner Gibson, meanwhile, has not responded to our requests for an interview. Some good news for Nevada's state budget. The state collected a little more than $1 billion more in tax revenue over the last year than expected. During the economic forum this week, analysts said the state collected $5.5 billion, led by gaming taxes being up by about $250 million. About $400 million of that money is going into the state's rainy day fund. Clark County's announced a new program to help thousands of people who are facing evictions. Now, the number of eviction cases this year here in Southern Nevada has increased by about 50%, up to 45,000 so far. This new diversion program is aimed at keeping some of those people in their homes and giving social services time to provide resources to those families. It'll cost a little more than $1 million. What's next for so-called dreamers? Next on Politics Now, how the Supreme Court could rule on DACA and the new push to keep the program alive through legislation. Plus, which Nevada House races are among the most expensive in the country?
watching Politics Now.
Well, Nevada has two of the most expensive House races in the country right now. Ad Impact reports $27 million has been spent in the Congressional District 3 race. That's between Democrat incumbent Susie Lee and her Republican challenger April Becker. That's actually tied for the most. The race for Congressional District 1 between Democrat incumbent Dina Titus and Republican challenger Mark Robertson, that's tied for 10th, $17 million spent so far. Overall, Nevada House races have the third most money spent of any state, $55 million. They're ahead of several states that actually have more races. Former President Trump plans to respond to a subpoena from the House January 6th committee. All 9 members of the committee voted this week to hear Mr. Trump's testimony at a public hearing. The former president asked on social media rhetorically why he wasn't allowed to testify or asked to testify months ago. This week, lawmakers presented new evidence they say shows the Secret Service were aware of threats made to Capitol Hill before the actual attack. A final report from that House committee is expected by the end of the year. A federal appeals court has ruled the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, DACA, is unlawful. Washington, D.C. correspondent Alexandra Limon spoke with a DACA recipient about the uncertainty these young immigrants now face.
I'm scared. I'm terrified.
Jaime Rangel arrived in the U.S. as an infant. He grew up and has made a life in Northwest Georgia. He's the Georgia State Immigration Director for Forward.us.
And now I have a 2-year-old son, and I have a wife. I have a family.
But Rangel is constantly living in fear that DACA, a program which allows him to stay and work in the U.S., could end. This week, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that DACA is unlawful.
It was devastating because the first thing that came to my mind is what's going to happen to our family.
The court said current DACA recipients can renew their school and work permits for now.
It's heading to a very terrible ending.
Debu Gandhi, Senior Director for Immigration Policy at the Center for American Progress, agrees.
There's absolutely a chance that DACA could be ended.
This case could end up before the U.S. Supreme Court, and Gandhi says previous rulings from the High Court signal the justices could decide to end DACA.
Often rule against programs or rights that Americans believe to be lawful.
This is a call to action. We need Republicans and Democrats to get together, do what they're being paid to do, legislate.
Rangel says only congressional action will deliver permanent protections for young immigrants like him who face possible deportations. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Right now, there is no vote scheduled in Congress to try and make DACA a permanent program. More politics news.
not be our Attorney General.
Welcome back. You can now apply for a license to host public cannabis lounges. The application process for the state of Nevada is open, and business owners have until the 27th to apply online. The Nevada Cannabis Compliance Board set state rules and regulations back in June for those lounges. The application fee is $10,000. It's non-refundable. Only 20 applications will be chosen in this lottery process. It's taken a long time to get to this point. This week in What to Watch, it's time to start voting. Mail ballots have already started going out to all registered voters here in Clark County, so you should be getting one in the next few days. Check your mailbox. Early voting opens next Saturday, the 22nd of October. You don't have to go to a specific location. You can vote at any early voting spot. You can also register to vote on Election Day as well. That'll do it for us here on Politics Now. Thank you so much for watching us. You can stay up to date online for all the political news, 8newsnow.com. Back with you next Saturday. Take care. Thanks for watching.